To know God aright means actually to know the name and the identity of God. And of course, to know the nature of God and its functioning. Now, as long as a person believes that they can pray to a God for something, they are not knowing God aright. Or, if they believe that God is withholding something that by means of prayer he is going to let loose of, they are not knowing God aright. Or, if an individual believes that God can do something this very minute which God isn't already doing, they do not know God aright. Or, if an individual believes that there are certain holy people that can make God do something, they are not knowing God aright. In other words, all religious teaching separates man from God. Because all of religious teaching tends to make man believe that there is some kind of a God somewhere that can be influenced by man, by his prayers, by his sacrifices, by his tithings. They do not remember the Master saying, God has no pleasure in your sacrifices, or his statement that man was not made for the Sabbath was made for man. God cannot be influenced by man, not even by a holy man. God can never be induced to do something. God already is. God already is doing. You might look outside and see black night out there, but none of you are going to sit up tonight to pray for sun tomorrow or for daylight. Because you know that God is ising. You know that God is functioning. You know that God is about his business this very moment, and that in its rightful second, daylight will appear. In its rightful second, the tides will be in or the tides will be out. You know that even if your trees are barren, as they were a month ago, you know right well that within 1 month there will be leaves on them, and you also know that within another month or two there'll be flowers and fruit and berries. Why do you know? Well, of course, you've been witness to it for so long that you know it is so, and you know that behind this visible scene, regardless of the barrenness of the scene, you know that you only have to be patient and the season of fruitage will be there, because you know that there is a law operating in that direction. However, when it comes to our own personal affairs, we have been led to disbelieve this. We have been led to believe that if we sacrifice, if we spend our day in the temple, if we give, if we do this, if we build edifices, if we sacrifice, then God will be led to do something to us. Or if we become good. No, the teaching is that God's rain falls on the just and the unjust. The teaching is, neither do I condemn thee, the woman taken in adultery. And so you see that before you can come to know God aright, you must really overcome most of your religious teachings. And you must begin to see God in a whole new light. You must begin to see that God does not respond to our entreaties, that God does not respond to our pleadings, that God does not respond, period. God is, and God is functioning now. And if there is discord and inharmony in our lives, it has nothing to do with God. It has to do with our failure to comply with the laws of God and bring ourselves under God's grace. It has nothing to do with bringing God into our experience. It has to do with our coming up into God's experience. Communion with God is a step in that direction. And communion means, first of all, knowing that the Father is within you, and then secondly, closing the eyes and keeping your attention within your consciousness, quietly, peacefully, cogitating, meditating. Meditate upon God day and night. Think of God. Try to understand the infinite nature of God. Try to understand that God is no respecter of persons, and God is no respecter of religions. There's no such thing as a Catholic God, a Protestant God, a Hebrew God, or a Vedanta God. There is only God, the Spirit that is within you. Whatever your name or nature, color, creed, religion, race, or whatnot, there is only one God, and it is within you. And then you lose all your prejudices and biases and bigotries, and you commence to understand what it means to love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and thy neighbor as thyself. For thy neighbor is thy brother. Thy neighbor is thyself. For God is the self of you and the self of your neighbor. Now we're commencing to see God closer. For God now reveals itself as myself. And therefore as thyself. And so there is only one self, which means there is only one life. The life you are living at this minute is the same life I am living at this minute. For there is only one life in this entire universe. The life of the grass is the same life as the life of the orchid or the life of the rose, and the life of the bird and the life of the lion. And as we know this, be assured the lamb can lie down with the lion. Once we know that the same life permeates all, and so it will be in our national and our international relationships. Once we know there is only one life, whether that life appears as a friend or as an enemy, it is still the one life, and our recognition of that stops our hating and enforces our loving, and love is the liberator. Love is the fulfilling of the law. But you can't love until you know that the same God that is the life of your being is the life of your neighbor's being, whether this neighbor is friend or foe. Then you will ultimately see the healing consciousness which realizes there cannot be a diseased life and there cannot be an aged life, because we all have one and the same life, and it is ageless and it is deathless.